man may eat it, the same law shall apply both to the native and the foreigner who resides amongst you. It's natural that the native amongst you should have been circumcised on the 8th day. So how can he be uncircumcised? What's the point of this? And it means, of course, no uncircumcised heart. In other words, you can't be eating it if you're a pagan. So what's going on here? What's this contradiction? I mean, clearly Paul is completely against Exodus 12, right? What are the Jews talking about when we say Paul is doing the right thing? In our tradition, we say Paul is doing the right thing. And the answer comes here very simply to understand how Christ is a Passover lamb for the uncircumcised people who are not allowed to eat the Passover lamb. I'll repeat, the Pesach Seder is only for the circumcised, okay? It is not for the uncircumcised. But Jesus Christ can be a Passover lamb for the uncircumcised. Well, what does it mean then? Jesus was crucified, and there he was sacrificed. Therefore, on the 14th of Nisan, right, on the eve of Passover, just like where the sacrificial lambs are sacrificed. And I'm always saying that that's not right. He wasn't sacrificed on that day. He had already kept the Pesach Seder with his disciples. That would happen on the night of the 14th when he did the Pesach Seder. Then he was teaching in the temple on the morning, on the 15th. And then at the end of the day of the 15th, he did the Havdalah with his disciples. That was the Last Supper. And then Judas gets up afterwards to go out. And that's why everybody thinks he's going shopping, because it's the end of the holiday. And you're allowed to go shopping at the end of the holiday, but you're not allowed to go shopping during the holiday. You couldn't do that if it was the Pesach Seder they'd just eaten as a Last Supper, but they can do it if it's the Havdalah. So he's going out and they think he's going shopping. And then Jesus goes out with his disciples and they get arrested. And this is all happening. And then he gets put on trial. And this is all happening not on the high holiday, on the 15th. This is after the 15th has passed. They've already celebrated the 15th. They've already had Havdalah for the 15th. And then eventually he's crucified on the day before the 21st, which is the last day of the holiday, the high holiday, the special Sabbath. The eve of the preparation day for the special Sabbath is when he's finally crucified. So how can he be a Passover sacrifice for Gentiles when the Passover sacrifice already happened the day before the Last Supper, the night before the Last Supper? There's just no relationship between Jesus Christ and his crucifixion and the sacrifice and the 14th of Nisan for Pesach. There's just no connection. There's no correlation. It's just two different things. So what's going on? How can he be a Passover sacrifice for Gentiles? We do know that Gentiles are not allowed to eat the Passover sacrifice. And we know something else. Okay? We know also, we should close that one down. We know also that none of its bones may be broken. Okay? And this is quite a curious thing. Why not break any of its bones? It seems to be related to this passage here when it talks about Jesus' crucifixion. It says it was preparation day for the high holiday, for the 20th, and the next day was the high Sabbath, the 21st of Nisan. In order that their bodies would not remain on the cross during the Sabbath, the Jews asked Pilate to have the legs broken and the bodies removed. Okay, so the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man who had been crucified with Jesus and those of the other. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he had already died, he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water flowed out. The one who saw this is Lazarus, I would say, has testified it to John, who's writing the one who saw this. He's writing about Lazarus. And his testimony is true. He, i.e. Lazarus, says John, knows that he, says John, about Lazarus, is telling the truth, so that you may also believe. Now these things happened so that scripture would be fulfilled, not one of his bones will be broken. And another scripture says they will look upon the one they have pierced. Well, look upon the one they have pierced is okay. Not one of his bones shall be broken. This is not a prophecy. It's referring to this passage, Exodus 12:46. This is what we're looking at up here. Not one of its bones shall be broken. Okay, so what's going on? Also, it's got actually Numbers 9:12 as well. And they shall look upon the one they have pierced is Psalm 34:20. Okay. So that's Psalm 34:20. Also, not one of them will be broken is again a reference to the same passage then in 12:46, and Numbers is again 12. They may not leave any of it until morning, or break any of its bones. They must observe the Passover according to its statutes. I must have missed the passage where it says not one of his, and they look upon the one they has pierced. But anyway, that's this passage. These are the passages which are relevant to us. None of the bones will be broken. None of the bones will be broken. Okay, they must not break any of its bones. Okay. And here, so 3 times we're told don't break its bones. 3 times. Okay, its bones won't be broken. But this is a commandment. This is not a prophecy. What's going on here? What's happening here? How is this a fulfillment of something? And just because his bones weren't broken, I mean, it's the wrong day. He's been crucified on the wrong day to be the Passover sacrifice. What's happening? And Gentiles are not allowed to eat the Passover sacrifice. So it's like real contradiction going on here. What's going on here? The answer is in Jewish tradition, in the Zohar, which was actually brought up just a few weeks ago by somebody who came onto the channel. I thought that he was actually a Jew, but he was actually turning out to be a Judaizer. And his interpretation of the passage was not totally correct, but aiming in the right direction. And so, in the Zohar, it says, what is the meaning of neither shall you break a bone of it? And it says, the answer is to show contempt to it and all the deities of Egypt, because the unbroken bones that were thrown out into the marketplace, and dogs would come and drag them from place to place. In other words, you would throw the bones of the Passover sacrifice, or the offering. It's not a sacrifice. The Passover commandment, you would throw the bones of the Passover commandment to the dogs. You would throw the bones to the dogs. You don't break the bones because broken bones can't be thrown to the dogs. You give the dogs their bone. The dogs get a whole bone. Rashi has further information about this, that you must also leave at least an olive size of meat on it to throw the bones to the dogs. Okay? So you have to leave at least an olive size piece of meat on it and throw the bones to the dogs. That's what you do. And the dogs will then carry the bones from place to place. The bones belong to the dogs. This causes offense to the Egyptians. This was the most difficult thing for them because the bones put the body in order and resemble another side, namely their other deities. The children of Israel cast them into the marketplace in contempt. Therefore it is written, neither shall you break a bone of it. You must not break them, but dogs came and broke them. Okay? So you have to give them to the dogs, and the dogs get to break them, and the dogs get to enjoy the bone marrow. The marrow on the bones is delicious and very healthy. It's good for you, and it's an enjoyable piece of food, but it's not permitted for the children of Israel to enjoy this most delicious part of the Passover lamb. It's not permitted for the circumcised to enjoy this most delicious part of the Passover lamb. It's only for the dogs. The dogs get to enjoy this most delicious part. And by the dogs getting to enjoy this most delicious part, the idolaters, the Egyptians, get upset about it. The idolaters who are worshipping false gods are made sad to see what happens to the one which is their deity, if you like. All right then. So they don't like to see the dogs getting this bones and dragging them around, because it seems to them to be disrespectful. And here we have a way of distinguishing the idolaters from the dogs. Okay, the dogs are treated better than the idolaters. The idolaters get sad when they see the dogs getting the nourishment from the bones. The idolaters get sad when they see the dogs getting the nourishment from the bones. A little bit more, it goes on. It can also be explained, the Egyptians came afterwards and saw the dogs dragging these bones from place to place and breaking them, and the Egyptians would bury them in the ground so that the dogs could not find them, which was the greatest obliteration of their idols on their side. The Holy One, blessed be He, was elevated in His glory by this, and all the other powers of the idols were subdued. When the subjugation of the idols is from their own side, it is even more profound. Namely, when they buried the bones of their idols in the earth, therefore it is not Israel that voided them, as is written, neither yet shall you break a bone of it. So the Egyptians covered it themselves. Right. So there's a lot going on here, and it's all related to what happened to Jesus on the cross, and also what Paul is talking about here. So Christ is the unbroken bones in this case. Jesus Christ, for Paul, when he's writing to the Gentiles, is talking about Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth, the Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. And this particular sacrifice, this particular Passover lamb, is for the Gentiles. He is the unbroken bones. They did not break his bones. There's a bit of flesh on there too. They didn't break his bones. Therefore, he does not belong to Israel anymore. He's not for Israel to get the benefit out of it. He's no extra benefit to Israel. And if you allow yourselves to be circumcised, then you miss this benefit. Okay? So this is something which is for the dogs. Who are the dogs? The Romans. They are under the Romulus and Remus, who were raised by the wolf. So they're kind of symbolizing dogs. Also, the Syrophoenician woman refers to herself as dog when she says, to Jesus, even the dogs get to eat the scraps. And she's making a direct reference to this, by the way, that fall from the master's table. The dogs get to eat the bones. And Jesus is very impressed at her knowledge and says, I think it's her daughter is healed. Another reference, of course, is to Caleb. Caleb is the name means dog, and it refers to the companion of Joshua, of the spies who went out to spy the land to see if it was suitable for them and how they might conquer it. They came back and the spies gave a bad report, except for Joshua and Caleb, who said, we can go and conquer it. Joshua representing Israel and Caleb representing Israel's best friend. This is the name meaning dog. And no, in English, this is sounding very offensive because the word dog sounds offensive in English. But in the context, in the biblical context, the dog is definitely not an offensive title. Otherwise, not many people would be calling themselves dogs. Caleb represents the Ishmaelite Edomians. He's a descendant of Esau, but he's a good descendant of Esau. He's a believing descendant of Esau, and those are represented by the son of Esau's Ishmaelite wife, because he had two Canaanite wives who from the wicked sons of Esau descend from, but the good sons of Esau descend from his Ishmaelite wife. This is the symbol. So the Ishmaelite wife is the mother of Reuel, the friend of God, and Caleb represents that side. The repentant Esau, the Edomian Ishmaelites, they kind of gentilized. They were Jews, they became Gentile, then they became Ishmaelite, which means they become believers again. So Caleb represents that side, and he's the dog. So these believing Gentiles, are the ones that are referred to as the dogs who eat the scraps from the master's table. Okay, they are the Caleb. They're represented by Caleb. They also get a place in the world to come. They are Israel's best friend. And they're loyal. Dogs are loyal. Okay, they're loyal and brave, trustworthy. So all of this is represented by this thing. Okay, but the wild dogs, the wolves, that's the Rome, haven't been domesticated yet. They haven't been brought in. They haven't been grafted in, if you like. And it is in the same way that Israel does not break a single bone of the Passover lamb, but casts the bones to the dogs, in the same way, Rome didn't break any of the bones of the Gentiles' Passover lamb, but the Gentiles' Passover lamb get the bones which are unbroken, i.e., they get Jesus. So Jesus becomes the bones. He actually doesn't symbolize the flesh which is eaten at the Pesach Seder. The Pesach Seder is over. It's done. It's finished already. He wasn't sacrificed at the right time. But what Jesus represents is the unbroken bones, which are from the Pesach Seder, which are given to the Gentiles, which are given to the dogs. So the dogs get the nourishment from this. So when the Gentiles are enjoying the nourishment from the Messiah, from Jesus Christ, that the people who have a wrong understanding of God may take offense at this and want to try and get the bones off of the dogs and bury the bones, okay, and therefore bury their own idols. So this is the sort of a parallel going on here. So there are different types of Gentiles who enjoy the nourishment from the Pesach offering, and those who want to sort of hide it and bury their idols. If you like, it's kind of like the origin of atheism from Protestantism. If you know, Protestantism sort of emerged and eventually turned into Puritanism, and then from Puritanism you get this kind of atheism where all the idols have been buried, and they even reject Jesus as well. So they're burying Jesus, you see. And who do they bury? They try to get Jesus off from the dogs who are enjoying the benefit of their Passover offering. So the dogs have their Passover offering, they have their Passover sacrifice, and that's what Paul is talking about here as Christ as the Passover sacrifice for the uncircumcised people, which is what's referred to here. The bones belong to the uncircumcised people. That's Jesus. Jesus belongs to the uncircumcised people. Jesus is the Passover offering which the uncircumcised people can enjoy during Passover. After the main Pesach Seder has finished, then the following night, then the Gentiles can enjoy Jesus as their Passover offering on the wrong time, because it's the Gentiles' Passover. It's a different version of the Passover. The Jews have already had our Passover. So now it's time for the Gentiles to have their Passover, and their Passover is the unbroken bones. Okay?